Hello, everyone. My name is McKenzie Kane with the National Sports Media Association, joined by the 2024 Michigan Sportswriter of the Year, David Birkett. Mr. Birkett, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here. How's everything?
Doing pretty well, doing pretty well. Well, let's start off with a brief introduction, if you will. Can you just share what you're currently doing in the world of sports reporting?
Yeah, so I cover the Lions. I've been at this for a long time, covering the Lions for the Detroit Free Press. Getting ready for the draft as we're talking right now. It's the draft is in Detroit this year, so even though the Lions are better, maybe a little bit busier from that standpoint. And then I'm wrapping up a book. This is my first book, illustrated sort of history of the Lions, and that's due out in August. So or before sometime during training camp. And about 75% done with that. So
Well,
kind of
fantastic.
doing both those things right now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, this is actually your fourth time receiving this award from the NSMA, the other three being 2013, 2016, and 2019. Can you just share what it means to you to be recognized again almost 4 years later?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, first of all, it's an honor to be selected by, a lot of my peers. I always say, I joke around that I don't know if my mom or someone is stuffing the ballot box in my favor, right? Because I know there's a lot of good writers here in Michigan, a lot of good reporters. So I'm honored to be selected again. And Jack Ebling, one of the former writers, had told me that there's only a couple people that have been selected, more than four times. Mitch Albom, Joe Falls, a couple of the legends in Detroit sports media, I guess. So humbled when he told me that.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned their names that even with this accolade, you're actually the third winningest sports writer in terms of NSMA titles in the Detroit Free Press's history. So, I mean, what do you think this says about the publication and what sets it apart from the rest?
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate when I came to the Free Press. I had a couple opportunities at various news organizations in and around the Detroit area, and the Free Press was the paper I grew up reading. I grew up reading people like Mitch Albom and Mike Downey, and it was always a place that I guess when I started wanted to get into the business, it was always a place I had hoped to work. And so I'm very fortunate that it worked out this way. And I'd like to think that especially as I go through writing this book and I'm looking at all the old archives of Lion stories dating back to the 30s. I feel very fortunate to be sort of carrying on the tradition, I guess, of covering the team for the paper of record in the town.
Well, do you mind just walking me through the timeline of your career from that moment when you first knew this was the industry you wanted to pursue to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I thought I was going to play in the NBA back when I was in high school, middle school, probably like a lot of kids. And then, I had the realization like, wow, maybe I'm not going to quite make the NBA, not fast enough, big enough, quick enough, whatever it was, but wanted to stay involved with sports somehow. And I always enjoyed writing. I mean, my mom has scrapbooks of like, when I was in second grade and basically copying stories from the Free Press. Isaiah Thomas scored 20 points or whatever it was. So maybe I was always drawn to it in some regard. I worked for my high school paper, my college paper. I went to Michigan State. I worked out in Virginia for about a year after I graduated. A paper called the Northern Virginia Daily. Came back to Michigan first for the Oakland Press, sort of a suburban chain of newspapers, and covered a little bit everything there. High schools and colleges. Did the Lions for a season or two. Went and covered Michigan for a year for the M Live newspaper group. AnnArbor.com was the what it was called, branded at the time. And then I've been back at the Free Press since 2010 covering the Lions. So I've seen covered just about everything here in Detroit. I was telling someone the other day at the owners meetings, like I've covered a bunch of Super Bowls and World Series and NBA finals, and I'm going to do the Olympics in Paris this summer. And that's kind of like maybe one of the only things I haven't covered. So get to check a lot of boxes, I guess, with the career.
That's very cool. What would you say is the most valuable lesson or skill you've developed over the course of your career?
Well, I think it's just, I don't know. I mean, it certainly helps make a good reporter, I guess, but I think it could really apply to any walk of life. And I certainly tell, kids this when I do career days, just the, I guess, ability to develop relationships. It's, you never know who sources are going to be in this industry. And I think if you treat people the right way, if you know when you meet them, you don't necessarily expect that they're going to be a source for you, but you develop a strong relationship with them, then that pays off. And maybe it just pays off in terms of friendship. Maybe it pays off years down the road in terms of help with the story. Maybe it just pays off in terms of the story that you're writing. You find out a lot more details about somebody. But I think that applies to anything that, you can be a salesman, a teacher, whatever it is. If you're, if you take those relationships seriously and work on building them, then you could be successful at any walk of life.
Well, I guess in terms of those same relationships, did you have that mentor who really helped guide you through your growth as a sports writer?
Um, yeah, maybe not in the traditional sense. There was no one that I really like leaned on, but I will say, all the people that I came up working with have been great helps to me. I mentioned Jack Ebling when I was a student at Michigan State. He was covering Michigan State, and it wasn't just him. Steve Grinzel and Terry Foster and Drew Sharp, late Drew Sharp. A lot of guys that were on the beat at the time. Dave Dye. They were great to a young kid who was kind of wide-eyed and trying to figure out his way. And so I appreciate all the guidance that I saw from them. Certainly my first boss here at the Free Press, Gene Myers. Grateful for him hiring me, and everyone that I've worked with here at the paper, all my editors. I don't know that there's one person that I've leaned on, maybe like a traditional mentor, but I do appreciate everyone that's poured something into me.
Now, I would love to talk Lions because I know that's your area of expertise. Well, Detroit had this pretty historic season last year. First time they finished first in the NFC North in over 30 years, never mind winning a divisional playoff game. So I'm curious how, as a reporter, these highs impact the content you're writing or the tone of your writing. And I guess on that same note, how do you keep your readers coming back during those dry spouts?
Yeah, I used to joke, man. I covered a lot of bad football in my years. Like, I covered 0-16. That was really my first full season covering the team in 2008. I covered Michigan State when Von L. Smith was there, and Michigan when Rich Rodriguez was there. So I saw a lot of bad football, and it's a lot better covering, a good team. The people, the stories, I think no matter what you're doing, you have to make sure that you're trying to tell unique stories and take the reader places that they can't get to. And that's become harder. It used to be a lot easier, I think, just based on, some of the access and, some of the, preferential treatment, I guess, the broadcast partners get. But, I think that's still what we strive to do is tell unique stories. And the Lions, the regime that they have right now, including the PR staff, they've been very helpful. In terms of facilitating stories, those are I'm appreciative of that, and in this season in particular, it was I think Brad Holmes, he said after the season, a lot of people are saying it's special and we're going to be back, and it's not, but no one meant it special. Like, the Lions aren't going to be back because they are a team that's built to last, but just to be able to cover that run. And take people inside of what that looked like, the amount, the way the fans really rallied behind this team and travel down the road. And it was a pretty special thing to watch. And I know it ended short of a Super Bowl, but really, it will go down as one of the best seasons in Lions history, and certainly in modern Lions history. And, I'm fortunate to be able to have covered that.
I guess on that same note, do you have a favorite story either from this season or from any year throughout your career that had specific meaning to you?
Well, this year, I mean, it was, look, writing about Jared Goff at the end of the year, CJ Gardner-Johnson at the beginning of the year. I think, diving into some profiles on people, those are always good things to do. Some of my favorite stories ever are, maybe a little more dated. I mean, when I was back at the Oakland Press, I did a 4-part series on, there were a couple kids that won a state championship in basketball, and they went off into colleges and they lost their scholarships for a variety of reasons. And they essentially came back and got into the drug trade, and sort of chronicling their rise and fall, real investigative stuff like that was something that really, sort of fueled, you could feel the burn, chasing that story. I'm very fortunate. Tim Shaw let me spend a day with him, former football player who's dealing with ALS. And we did some very personal things when we did that a few years back. So, I think stories like that are really the ones that, are the most meaningful as I sort of look back at my career.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I mean, as someone who's reported on both college and professional sports, do you see significant differences in the dynamics and stories that emerge from these two levels of competition?
I think the access has been a lot better at the pro level. It's sort of why I gravitated towards it after doing a little bit of everything. You're dealing with men, they'll talk to you or they won't if they don't want to. And, the access rules being in the locker room certainly help us do our job. So very appreciative of the Pro Football Writers Association for making those things possible, and fighting for those along the way. I do think that you can tell great stories no matter what you're covering. Like when I was covering high schools, I used to sort of think the same thing, like, hey, this is the first time anyone's reading about these people. So, it's sort of like raw and untapped, and you're writing about people that no one has read about before. And by the time they get to the NFL, everyone sort of knows their stories. So maybe it's a little more challenging to find that unique story. But you can still tell those stories just in a different way.
Well, I think you and I could both agree that the sports media landscape has evolved significantly over the past couple of years with the growth of digital platforms, social media. So I'm curious how this has impacted your approach to storytelling or engaging your audience.
Yeah, definitely have to be able to do everything and have to be able to get it up quick. And, we always used to say, right, if you're not, if you're not first, you got to be best. You got to have something brand new. And I think that's still, the case in a lot of ways. I will say some of the news has been commoditized to a certain extent. So as much as we're all competitors and we all chase the news, like, something happens and you can get it confirmed in a matter of seconds, 99% of the time. And so I don't know, that's not, that maybe that was one of the things that, again, going back to why I got into the business, right? Like, there is that competitive aspect that you're always chasing. So, not that, we still don't chase news, but you sort of miss that a little bit. But without a doubt, the media landscape has changed a lot. Video is important, social media, Twitter, those sort of things are extremely important, and for better or worse, I guess sometimes, because I was just telling my son today, like, man, I wish I could take that off my phone sometimes, but you can't really when you're, a beat reporter. So hey, that comes with the territory though, I guess.
Well, I guess on a more positive note, looking ahead, do you have any short-term or long-term career goals you hope to achieve? I don't know, you mentioned your book.
Yeah, no, I mean, the book is the big one that I'm working on right now. I've always sort of, we'll take them as they come, right? Whether I continue to be a beat writer or do something else, it's, I enjoy my job. I know at the end of the day, a lot of people say, hey, it's, you get to watch football for a living, and, maybe that's the bottom line of it. It's a lot, deeper than that. But I realize there's other people out there that, um, they may hate going to an office or, dealing with, their bosses or whatever it may be. But, I feel, fortunate that I have something different to cover every day and something different to do every day. And there's different people that we're running into every season. So nothing, that outside of finishing this book and getting back to spending some time with my kids and my family, nothing really jumps out. But, those things always come as they come in this business.
Now, before I let you go and give you that time to get back to your kids and family, do you have any
You can see
advice
him peeping
for
through the window there. I think I just saw him over my shoulder. So
ugh, it's good to have that support system.
that's right.
Well, I mean, do you have any advice for young aspiring sports writers and reporters like myself who maybe don't know where to start or are just curious how to tap into the industry?
Yeah, look, I mean, I got into it, certainly not for the money, having no idea what I would cover, um, basically just because it was something I love to do. And, a job is a job, and there's parts that we all don't like about it. But I would say for anyone, if you find something that you enjoy doing and it doesn't feel like work, that makes work all that much better. So, if it's something that you enjoy and you have a passion for, keep going down that road. And it's not going to be easy, especially with the way the media landscape is today. It may take a while to catch your break, but once you do, work hard to keep it, work hard to keep that edge. Always stay competitive, and try to take the reader into places that they haven't been. And there's good stories out there, like I said, no matter what you're covering. So you find those stories, and you'll be a success, and you can sleep easy, and people will respect the job that you do.
Well, Mr. Birkett, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. Congratulations again on your fourth NSMA title, and I wish you best of luck this season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.